Welcome, everybody, to a new episode of the Son of Sam Chronicles. I'm RockerMike. To my left is Rossi. Bottom left is Neo. And on the bottom right is called Denaro. Today, we're going to be talking about the Yonkers PD papers that Neo had collected the last episode. We've been talking about that. And we're going to talk about particularly the Glassman fire. Glassman was David Berkowitz's neighbor downstairs, Greg Glassman. And we're going to talk about what happened with the fire department there. We're going to talk about what led up to that fire and what happened after. So, Neo, I mean, you really came across good with this timeline here for me. I appreciate that. And what I'm looking at here is, if you go to June 7th, 77, Glassman gets his first threatening letter from David Berkowitz. Tell us a little bit about that.
That was the first letter Glassman received. He moved in there about, March 15th in 77.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first time Glassman is now entered into this scene of Berkowitz.
He's his downstairs neighbor.
Yeah, playing the TV too loud. I guess he couldn't sleep.
Berkowitz made official complaints about that, right?
Yeah, I think he actually contacted him downstairs, complained to him about the TV personally. Okay. I don't know if he's seen him or called him, but, there is in the reports that, Glassman is saying that the guy upstairs complained to him about the loud TV, so yeah, I don't think it was in the letters that he mailed him. I think it was, he had maybe reached out to him, on the phone or just something,
Yeah, maybe in the hallway, something like that, right?
Yeah, I don't think he's seen him. So that's why I think he called him on the phone and complained. But, it says he complained to him. So,
Yeah. So June 7th, he gets a threatening letter. Now, is it in his mailbox? Is it stuffed under his door? Where did he get it from?
Yeah, I think he got that out of his mailbox.
Out of his mailbox.
Yeah.
Okay. So what was he saying in this letter?
The same crazy stuff he always says,
Yeah. Did he mention the cause?
Yes, he did.
In that letter?
Yeah.
Okay. Now,
this is you're talking about the 2-page letter he got in the day of the fire, correct?
Well, I'm talking about the first letter. Okay. What did he mention in that? Do you recall?
Oh, no.
Okay. No. Was it anything, do you recall anything, that would give it away that it's a Son of Sam?
Yes. Well, there had to be Carr in there because when the fire happened, the letter that I sent you, the 2-page letter, he didn't find yet. The fire happened, and then he went downstairs in his mailbox, and there was a 2-page letter there that I sent you. But the first letter you're talking about,
mm-hmm.
And there was another letter sent before the fire. So when the fire happened, Yonkers came there, and they seen Craig's letters. So, yeah, Carr's had to be in those letters because that's how the police, kind of put it together when they seen his letters.
Right. When the fire happened, which was August 6th, just a few days before Berkowitz got arrested, when he makes the report to the firemen and the policeman particularly, which detective was that now? The policeman?
Which time?
During the fire, right after the fire.
The first person he talked to was Chamberlain. He talked to the fire lieutenant first, then there was Chamberlain, and then there was another 2 detectives there that then, they contacted the other detectives.
Right. And at that point, they remembered something that another detective had said to them about the cars.
Yeah.
Okay. So at that point, it's starting to get a little, suspicious as to who Berkowitz might be.
Yes.
Would you say that?
Yeah.
Let's talk about the fire in particular. Now, August 6th, 77. I'll read this from your outline. It says, Craig Glassman has a fire set to door at 7:30 a.m. Craig Glassman gives his report to Lieutenant Starkey of the Yonkers Fire Department. The Yonkers fire investigator, the report states that Glassman tells the investigator that he had a complaint from a neighbor who lives directly over him about his television being too loud. Mr. Berkowitz could not be contacted by Lieutenant Starkey. So Starkey's taking this report. Mm-hmm. And Glassman's telling him, I got a problem with my neighbor upstairs. My neighbor complained. So Starkey's thinking this could be the guy who set the fire, obviously.
Yeah.
So they go upstairs. Now, what happens when they go up to I think it's the 7th floor, right?
Yeah, the floor up, one up from Craig's.
Right, right.
He wasn't there. You know, they attempted to look for him, to question
They
him.
knocked on the door, and
he wasn't there. They failed to contact him.
Okay. Now, according to I believe it's the fire department report, they actually went so far as to go out on the fire escape and try to look in.
Well, that was Glassman and Chamberlain.
Okay, so this is the police department, and
that's the fire department. You know, Glassman goes up with the fire department, gets no answer, and at the same time, Chamberlain had showed up with Wisner, another police officer.
Okay,
and they were taking reports from Glassman too, and then Chamberlain also went up to Berkowitz's apartment, wasn't home, and then Glassman and Chamberlain also, I would say, went through his apartment. You know, went out to the fire escape and went up a floor because they looked through the fire escape window and seen that they couldn't see in the apartment. It was covered with blankets.
Blankets were over the windows. They couldn't see in. So this is something I want to bring up because it's important, because for about a year and a half, we have heard a story circulated in the Son of Sam community that the fire department got in and saw the place immaculate. Okay. And which is, not the way it was found a few days later when Berkowitz got arrested. The place was wrecked. Now, just to put it in context with the Ultimate Evil, in the Ultimate Evil, and Carl, you could probably elaborate this a little bit better than me, is Maury Terry says that Berkowitz's apartment was cleaned out, right? Stuff was out.
Yeah.
What happened there?
Well, what he said was that a couple days before the arrest, Berkowitz and two other people helped clear out the apartment of all the furniture, and then they wrote on the walls, put a fist through the wall. I believe Mr. Williams' Hall. So all this crazy stuff. There is some corroborating evidence. Geraldo Rivera was actually in the apartment the day after.
Yes.
And he told me, I'm sure he said it on his show, but he personally told me that that he saw the dust from the sheetrock right on the floor.
So it was fresh.
So it was fresh, from the Mr. Williams' Hall. So I know, a woman, one of the neighbors of Berkowitz had mentioned that about a month before Berkowitz's arrest, she heard a loud thud come from Berkowitz's apartment, and the assumption is that that's when the hole was made. We have absolutely no proof of that. In fact, if anything, we have some circumstantial evidence that proves that it was done, a day or two or three before Berkowitz's arrest, because of the sheetrock dust.
Right. You wouldn't keep that around. You'd vacuum it up probably at some point.
And all that happened the day of the arrest, Carl?
According to...
So that would be the 9th, not the day of the fire.
The 7th, 8th, or 9th. Yeah. I'm
pretty sure they said it was the morning that he got arrested.
Well,
I could be wrong.
The reason I'm saying that is I don't think it's the morning of, because it's possible, but Maury did say that Berkowitz and two other people helped carry out furniture, and they dropped it off at, I believe, the Salvation Army in Mount Vernon.
And didn't somebody witness that furniture out there?
Yeah, someone did witness it. I don't believe there was a name attached to it. So again, we're stuck with a story with not too much factual evidence.
But the factual evidence we have based on these reports is that the fire department did not get into the apartment.
Nobody got into that apartment.
Nobody got into the apartment.
No, you got them going with the firemen in the morning once. You got them going with the police officers. Then the officers call Lorenzo and Oakley because they're on the Carr case and realize that the Carrs are involved in this. Mm-hmm. They go 4 times that day, Lorenzo and Oakley. Then they go the next day. No one could get in. And they were searching for the car too, because they knew the license plate in the car making it by now.
Yeah.
based on this report, the Yonkers report from both police and fire department, it's to me it's pretty clear if you want to believe this, it's pretty clear that no authority was in Berkowitz's apartment a week or 2 or 3 days before Berkowitz's arrest.
Well, I would think after the arrest, Carl, like even if someone got in there and didn't record it at the time, I would think after the arrest that whoever was in there, if somebody was in there, would have gave a report after they were saying I was in that guy's apartment a week ago.
Right.
That's not.
Yeah. So the point I wanted to bring up was, this rumor, or whatever you want to call it, that a fire department or arson personnel was in the apartment and said it was pristine. I'm making an assumption here, but how would Maury Terry know that the apartment was set up 2 or 3 days before? And I don't know what the answer is, but I guess the point I'm making is this rumor. I don't know. This rumor could have been around back in the 70s, 80s, and even 90s that the fire department was in there.
Yeah.
So but again, like everything else in this case, once you get one answer, it creates 20 more questions. So I just wanted to bring that up, just to level set everything.
And there's always a possibility a rogue fireman, went on his own. But then, like I said, I would still think that he would have reported it after. But because firemen do get there before the investigator a lot of times, and some of them go around and try and make sure everybody's okay. So I mean that's open. But like I said, I would think that even if that was to happen, someone would have reported that after the arrest.
And any fireman, rogue or official, whatever you want to call it, I think that the only way they're going to get into the apartment is if they got a key. They're not going to break the door down. Okay.
Unless there's a fire.
Unless there's a fire, but unless there's a fire. But they weren't, you wouldn't be doing that if they did that, we'd know because there'd be the broken down door. But that didn't happen. So if any fireman got in there, it would have been let in by the super, who I think we know
he was notified.
Yeah,
too. The super, in the reports, the super was notified, so they were in contact with him, and I don't see anyone getting in there.
Yeah, somebody would have said something. I let a fireman in on this time, this day.
Right.
So I think it's safe to say, I mean, with 99.9% certainty that there was no body in that place. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now we can't totally prove what Maury Terry said. Okay. Other than the circumstantial evidence, but there's enough of it to say that it's very possible that even at the time of the fire, that place, didn't have the hole in the wall, Mr. Williams' hole and all that. I think you could probably assume that.
Right. If I'm not mistaken, Neil, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't the Casaras say that that Berkowitz, when he lived in the Casara house, that he was a relatively neat guy?
Yes. Yeah. They said they had no problems with him.
Right.
Because I asked Stephen when he moved in, was he crazy? And he said, no, he was okay. He had a job. He seemed good. And that one night it was, you hear Nan talk about it too, how he was he was good. And it was one night he just went berserk. Yeah.
Right.
That's when he was yelling in their driveway, right? Like, middle of the night or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's other accounts of him being, fairly neat guy, even from, older times, like, before he went in the army and things like that.
Maybe the fucking guy took some mushroom and saw a demon in the fucking wall. Who the hell knows?
So while this is going on, okay, Sam Carr, okay, on the same day, August 6th, goes down to the 109th precinct. Okay. Now, last week we had a little tit for tat on if that actually happened earlier. You kind of thought it was. I say no, but it doesn't matter really for this discussion. The 109th is in Flushing, Queens, and Carr went down there to inform who turned out to be an unknown detective. He was sent down there by Jimmy Breslin to speak to Detective Dowd. But when he went there, he didn't speak to Dowd. Okay,
that was the first time.
If there was a first time.
Okay.
Did he speak to Dowd?
Then on the 6th on the fire, that's the second time we see him going there.
Did he speak to Dowd though?
No, even the second time he spoke to a captain and a detective.
Yeah,
right.
But for some reason the names aren't there.
Yeah, to be fair, there's the fact that that Sam Carr talked to Inspector Dowd
to me is kind of remote. I mean, there was a 300 at that point. There was a 300-man task force, and Dowd was in charge of it. So I doubt Dowd was sitting at a desk at the 109th precinct fielding calls and greeting guests that might have some information.
Right, but one thing we do know is that Carr went down there on the 6th with it in his mind that Berkowitz could be the son of Sam. Okay, and how did Carr? Okay, did he go down August 6th knowing about the Glassman fire?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
The fire happened at 7:30. He went down. He got down there at about 11:30.
How did he find out about it, Neil? Any idea?
The fire, I'm sure. Wheat knew. They were watching 35 Pine. I'm sure since they knew Berkowitz was there, and when that happened, I'm sure Chamberlain probably called them too.
They got a call, and because the guy, when he saw the letters, the cops, when Glassman's letters from Berkowitz, that triggered it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. When the Yonkers went to the fire, seen his letters, they were like, that's it. Because even the day before the fire, Chamberlain and Intervallo were going to see their superiors. And after they seen the superiors on the 5th, they called New York City and spoke to Detective Richard Salverson and briefed him with everything that was going on in Yonkers. This was a day before the fire. So then the fire happens, and Chamberlain goes to that, sees the letters. They're already pretty convinced. And it's just more right there,
Right. Paul. I'm
sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Yeah.
Were these? How did Glassman get in touch with them? Was it a personal phone call? And the reason I'm asking is, would that message been sent over the police lines, like in a squad car?
Yonkers wasn't into Glassman at all until the fire. The fire happens. He calls the fire department because of the fire, and then the cops come there. That's the first time they talk to Glassman.
Okay, so when he calls the fire department, would that be put over?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So
yes.
if Carr was working that day,
yes,
she could have heard. She could have heard.
There's a fire in 35.
There's a fire
absolutely.
in 35 pounds.
Yeah. Call.
You're not going to believe what happened.
Makes sense.
I'm assuming, but there's got to be like what prompted Sam Carr to go to the 109th precinct 3 hours after the fire, and that, I don't know, to me that sounds logical.
Well, I think he heard about this. They told him. Wheat must have said, that Berkowitz in his apartment, he's getting a guy downstairs, something like that. I think he definitely found out, because I don't think he would have went down there right that moment like that. It looks too,
Yeah.
What would be interesting is if you could find the actual report that Carr made. Okay.
Yeah.
What was said.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it looks like, if he knew about the fire, which he probably did, he would have mentioned to the officers with the 109th, hey, not only is this guy the son of Sam, he might have just set this fire.
Yeah,
okay.
He probably did. Yeah. Yeah. He probably did.
So there's another example of what's up with the police work here.
Yeah.
I get it all, but it just seems like it should have rang some more bells down at the 109 that there's something going on in Yonkers.
Well, it kind of shows you why these reports weren't released. I think they were really, wasn't that they wanted to cover anything up. They had a lot to lose from the negligence done, which, I don't think it was on purpose. I don't want to say anything like that, but there was, There's a lot of finger pointing to Berkowitz, and I just can't understand why he wasn't questioned. That,
Yeah, that makes sense. And
you know what's funny? You know what's funny? That's not the first time something like that happened at the case. Look at the Jeffrey Dahmer case. How many times were calling the cops and they never came and arrested them? And they even brought a guy back to him after the guy escaped. They brought a guy back to him. It was insane.
Yeah, I mean, police makes mistakes. I'm not.
It's easy to be a Monday morning quarterback.
That's for sure.
Armchair general. Yeah,
I also think that if these complaints were done by somebody else other than Sam Carr,
you mentioned.
I think the police would have just handled it differently. I think they were looking at him like a little crazy, and I just don't think they were taking him seriously, Sam Carr. I think if it was somebody else with the complaints, they would have acted differently.
Okay, and
that's a true scenario. You know what? There's a lot of teams in the time. You get a neighbor that keep complaining that the cop gets to a point that they just don't.
And he was known to write into the paper a lot, and he was very much into his neighborhood and how it was kept, and I'm sure they had some other complaints on him beforehand that made them
used to complain about kids in the neighborhood.
Yes, I got one. I think it was Caveman telling me that Carr used to, because if you go up Wicker on Grove, it's kind of a dead street. You can park your car there, but you're not supposed to park it there past a certain time. Right. And he told me that Carr used to go out there and call the cops all the time on his friends that parked their car there, like every day.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that would
doesn't make him a bad guy, but I'm
but let's face it, we're all human, and you get a guy that's consistently calling in complaints, and basically, cranky old man.
Yeah.
I could see where the NYPD and the Yonkers police would not take his statements as serious as they probably should have. But again, Monday morning quarterbacking is a lot easy. It's easy for us to say 45 years later, but just to say what you were saying, earlier, I don't think any of this by either police department was done to cover anything up. I think, but I do think after the fact there was reasons why, and you just said this, Paul, that the reason why these reports weren't released is because it doesn't make either police department look good.
Yeah,
and
throw out too. I don't think they didn't give Maury stuff because they didn't like him. I think they maybe got annoyed after a while because he wouldn't stop getting stuff, but they couldn't give anything out. They couldn't do anything. Everything was closed. All police in Yonkers was told not to talk about it because of the lawsuits were there. They closed up.
Sure.
So you have Maury Terry bothering the hell out of him for stuff. And they're like, no. And after a while it gets annoying. So I think that's where kind of, you see like, oh, they didn't like Maury or they're fighting with Maury. That wasn't it. Their hands were tied. They couldn't release any information.
Well, that makes perfect sense because if they were going to release any of this information to anyone, the last person they would release it to was an investigative reporter that's pounding on doors. So that does make sense, and it also speaks to the rumors that, or whatever you want to call it, not necessarily rumors, that everyone hated Maury. Maury was a bad guy. He was a bully. Maury was a lot of things, but I knew him for 20 some odd years, and I don't buy that. I mean, he definitely was a type A personality, no two ways about it. But again, it doesn't make him a bad guy. But I can see where he can get on people's nerves.
And guys, you got to remember, just because they arrest the guy doesn't mean they're still investigating. They still got to keep those files for a long time to look into other stuff. There could have been another murder or something else. So you got to remember, they
didn't want that, Rob. They just wanted to close it.
Right.
He was confessing to everything.
Oh yeah.
They just go away. Let's try. You know what I mean? They didn't even want to look for anybody else. I wouldn't think.
No, but Neil, you got to understand. They still want to see if they can link any other things to it. There might have been other shooting that weren't solved. Can we link it to the Son of Sam or do something?
Was that?
Yeah.
Was that ever done? Was that ever tried to be done, as far as you guys know, after the fact?
I don't know. Rob's right. Rob's correct. That but they went through hell with this. I would think they would just but
they wanted to get him. They wanted to get somebody and case closed.
But you're right. You're right. I mean, there probably is stuff out there, Rob.
Well, Berkowitz definitely made it easy for everyone by pleading guilty to all the crimes. It's kind of like, all right, case closed. Yeah. And I'm sure the cops were looking at each other saying, like, did that just happen? You know, because if it went to a trial, again, who knows how it would have turned out? But it certainly wouldn't have turned out the way it did turn out. So Berkowitz provided, by pleading guilty, providing an open and shut case to both police departments.
He made it very easy for them. Just a question. I'm just curious, like going back to what Rob is saying about linking other cases. I mean, just wondering how long the case was actually left open before they officially closed it. Do you know that, Carl?
I
6 months, or what was it like?
Yonkers was, I think, like a week.
Really?
I think on the because you had Violante and Moskowitz going to sue Yonkers. I think it was like October 15th or something, and then the 18th.
Well, that would be
an article. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that would be 2 months. They closed the case, Violante?
Well, he got arrested on August 10th, and I think around the 18th or something, Yonkers closed and told all officers not to discuss the case. Case closed. Don't discuss this with anybody, because Moskowitz and Violante was suing Yonkers at that time.
In October?
No, right after the arrest.
Oh, in August.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure a timeline, but I believe Sal Lupo also.
Yonkers,
but I'm not sure if it was of Yonkers and NYPD or just the NYPD.
What was the grounds, though?
I've never seen. I've never seen the complaint, but I do know that
it was a civil case.
A judge threw it out.
But it was a civil case.
I guess it was a civil case. Yeah, I guess it was a civil case against. Now that we're talking about it, probably wasn't Yonkers. It was probably the NYPD. And I'm assuming it was. Hey, if you listen to whatever. Whatever information, maybe, probably including Sam Carr going to the 109th, a couple of days before Berkowitz's arrest. You know what? Earlier we were talking about 2 visits from Sam Carr. I believe the first, if I'm not mistaken, the first visit was in the middle of June 15th, June 17th.
July 12th, I'm pretty sure.
If it was July.
Yeah, July 12th was
July 12th?
The first time he went down there. Yeah.
All right. I was just spitballing.
I think, Mike. I don't want to
trying to figure out what the grounds of that Sal Lupo would have to bring a lawsuit.
Well, they might have heard about Sam and Wheat bothering the police, and that things were being brought to the law enforcement about Berkowitz beforehand. They may have heard that,
Right.
Yeah, there was probably lawsuits, and once you do lawsuits, you know what? How much information do you want to give up and jeopardize yourself? So,
I mean, let's be for real. If Moskowitz and Violante see what we're seeing now, that Yonkers was notified June 10th about Berkowitz's name. I mean, they didn't connect him to Son of Sam yet, but they didn't even go to question him. On June 10th about,
that's a good point.
Yeah. And then you got him going down to other police departments. And then, also within this timeline, you see Yonkers conversing with New York City before the arrest. Mike, we can get to that yet if you want to.
Yeah. Well, I actually,
so there's stuff there. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I want to get into that now, actually. Okay. There's a point when they realize in Yonkers that this guy really could be the Son of Sam. Mm-hmm. Okay. So they speak to who down in the city? Who do they speak to?
Well, August 5th. This is the day before the fire. You got Inavallo and Chamberlain, speaking to Mike Novotny at Yonkers. And then after they speak to him, their superior, They go into the Yonkers Police Department Intelligence Division, which I guess is where they transfer, their information to the task force to New York City. And when they go to the Intelligence Division, they talk to New York City Detective Richard Salverson. This is August 5th, the day before the fire.
Okay.
Now they have Berkowitz as a suspect here. Okay,
but how does that happen? How does they got him as a suspect?
Well, they're working with Carr and Sam Carr, and they're the letters, the harassment, and just things. I guess Wheat was doing a lot behind the scenes, also. Just I guess stuff that was giving him suspicion. I mean, there must have been.
Well, the Glassman fire hadn't happened yet. It was the day before.
But they have all this stuff happening to the cars,
Right, the dog, right, and the letters and all that. But they also dropped these letters off to the FBI earlier in the summer.
Yeah,
which they'll get those samples back on August 4th. Okay, and they show as inconclusive. Now, these were like the letters from the Casares, the letters from Carr, to Carr, I should say, to the Casares, and nothing turned up with the FBI. No fingerprints.
Those letters, the get well soon letter, right?
Yeah, I think it was the get well soon, right, Neil?
Yeah, that and Sam Carr's 2 letters with Berkowitz's signature from his lease on 35 Pine. They send that all into the FBI. Comes back.
And Glassman's letter.
Now, no, they didn't have Glassman's yet.
No, not yet.
July 13th.
But he didn't make it. He didn't make it known, right?
They didn't know about Glassman's letters till August 6th on the fire.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
because he said, "Hey, I also got a letter from in the mailbox."
Yeah, the point I wanted to bring out with the samples being sent to the FBI. I don't know. I thought it was kind of strange that the FBI sent back the samples as inconclusive.
All they had was his signature. I who knows how he signed it?
It's just his signature. I thought they were looking at the letters.
Yeah, all they had was, I don't know how he signed his name on the lease, but that's all they had from his hand. And then they had to put it together with the get well and the letters. I don't know. They came back inconclusive, but
yeah.
Oh, so it's like a handwriting comparison that they're looking at. Is that what the FBI did, Neil?
Yeah.
Okay, in my mind, I'm thinking fingerprints, but you're right. It couldn't be that because it would make no sense. It wouldn't matter. Of course, his fingerprints are on these elites.
Yeah, why didn't they check for fingerprints?
I guess they could have compared the letters with fingerprints, but maybe I don't know.
It's too bad they didn't because being that Berkowitz was in the service,
he should have been.
I'm sure his fingerprints were certainly in a federal database.
Oh yeah,
maybe not. Today, the Yonkers could go and get compare to fingerprints to a California suspect.
Yeah, it's all connected.
Back then you couldn't, but I would think
military record you could.
Right, that would be part of the the federal government's database.
Yeah.
I don't know
that's interesting. That's kind of like what if? Okay.
You know what's the problem with the letter? How many people touched the letter also? Because you're going to have multiple fingerprints on. That's the other thing. So, you just want to start confusion because you give it to this guy, give it to that guy, everybody's reading it.
Sure.
Now you have 6, 7 fingerprints.
That's what happened to the Borelli letter.
Borelli letter, right.
Because, I guess the cops on the scene didn't realize. I don't know how they couldn't realize that, but they said by the 70s,
they weren't wearing gloves like
police headquarters. They said every cop on the scene touched the letter.
I think they hold the gun up. I mean, no glove, no nothing. There's even bullets in it.
And he's the guy credited for the arrest.
Well, I think he kind of
credited.
He kind of stole the collar from Yonkers. I'm gonna stick with Yonkers on this.
You gonna put that on the record, Paul?
Yeah. I think he swooped down here. I think Yonkers would have got him. I don't think that parking ticket would have mattered, and I think Zigo swooped down here with all the information he heard and stole that collar. That's just my opinion.
Well,
and I'm going to stay Yonkers till I die. So.
No, but it's a good point. And to solidify that point, the conversation that Carr had with NYPD Justice, to me was probably icing. That was like a slam dunk.
Well, what do you think Yonkers is thinking now? I'm showing you on the 5th before the fire that they have him as a suspect. Then they're going there on the 6th, getting Glassman's letters, right? Mm-hmm. Then now you see him conversing with New York City. They're obviously, you got some serious stuff. They're So now they get a call that this guy who they think is Son of Sam's Carr was at the last shooting. You don't think Yonkers was red flags up all over,
I think Yonkers red flag was probably up. The NYPD, I don't think their flag was up at all. And proof of that to me is the fact that they sent 2 detectives up to interrogate Berkowitz. There's the biggest manhunt in New York City history. There's no way they sent.
And you're right, they did come to talk to him. Yeah, but I
turned very quickly.
I think they came up to check it out. They came up to talk to Yonkers, the 2 of them. Check it out and talk to the people with their information there. And then, like I said, he called them in, but I agree with you. There should have been more people. Definitely. I can't answer that, was it maybe a greedy cop trying to run down and get everything for himself? I don't know, but
possible. But you know what? Once they get up there, you take the phone conversation that Justice had with Carr as a dispatcher. And then they get to the apartment, and they look in the car. They open the door. They see the guns. They see a letter. They run off to get a search warrant. Now you put 2 and 2 and 2 and 2 together, and it's like, we got them. I think that's when. And I don't know the timeline on this. I believe they were up there late in the afternoon.
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock, right?
4 o'clock.
Zigo comes up. Okay, go ahead.
Right. So, and I don't think Berkowitz came out of the apartment till about 10 o'clock.
I think it was like 9:20.
Right. Okay. So I think in those 5 hours, putting everything together, it's like they were chomping at the bit, and I think Zigo at that point says, "Oh, crap, this is the collar of my life."
Let me ask you guys a question. Did Justice, after speaking with Wheat, this is something I've never been able to find on anything, maybe you guys know. When Justice speaks to Wheat and then Zigo decides to go up to Yonkers, was he ordered to go up there? Did someone tell him about the conversation with Wheat? Or how did that conversation turn into his action to go up there? You know what I'm saying?
That's a good question.
Go ahead.
No, I don't know the answer.
Well, Justice talks to Wheat. And then Wheat talks to everybody in Yonkers and puts them together with Justice. So now you have Yonkers and New York talking that night. I can't see how they were coming up here.
Is Zigo working independently from Justice? In other words,
that I'm not sure. Justice contacts Zigo,
That's where I get confused with it, because it seems to me, and what I always thought, and I totally could be wrong, is that Justice spoke to Wheat, but Zigo is not working under Justice, right? He's not in his department, right? Where Justice is from where? Because Zigo was
right.
I think Justice is from Brooklyn, Brooklyn detective, and he may or may not. Yeah, he may or may not be part of the Omega Task Force. So you have to realize, that there's a number floating around saying there was 300 detectives assigned to the Omega Task Force.
Yeah.
As far as I know, that's true. But what I also know, and I know this from personal, I'm talking to cops, regular patrolmen were unofficially part of the Omega Task Force.
I know a cop. He was just a patrolman. He wasn't even a detective, and stationed in Brooklyn. And they had him doing various chores. Going through files, looking at local people who could be suspects. So there was more than 300 people working on it. But what we don't know is, did Justice hang up with Wheat and then call up Zigo, or did they just call up the task force and say, hey, I just got off the phone with the Yonkers dispatcher, and then the Omega task force assigned Zigo to go up there. I'm not really sure.
What's funny is there's a movie, and I mentioned this to Neo, Out of the Darkness, with Martin Sheen playing Zigo.
I watched it.
TV movie. Okay. Yeah. They're fast and loose with facts and everything. It's not really accurate. Do you remember this movie, Carl? It's from like 85 or something.
I saw it on TV in 1985.
Yeah.
I haven't revisited, but
it's free on YouTube.
I probably should, because
I know a lot more today than I did in 1985.
What's interesting is, they don't tell everything accurately, but Sheen's a good actor. He does a good job playing Zigo. And Zigo was part of this movie as an advisor on on how things happened. Zigo's interesting because he got into movies after this. After he retired, he played in a couple of films, and he was involved with script writing, I think, and other things. But Sheen is playing him, and the scene in the Brooklyn Station House, which they have as the 65th precinct, which is interesting because that's the one. I think that's the one where Moskowitz on Bath Avenue, right?
Well, that would make sense because Zigo.
Yeah,
it's my understanding Zigo was a detective in that precinct.
I think because you see the outside of it. I know where that is. A buddy of mine lives down there, so I go down there sometimes. I passed it a million times on my way back to the Belt Parkway. But in the movie, you see Zigo, and he's talking to his partner, and he's like, "Oh, we're just this tip, we're going to go up to Yonkers. It's a waste of time. We'll do it anyway." Basically, that's his attitude. Okay. You just watched it, Neo, right? Did you see that part?
I did. I see it.
He kind of played it off like nonchalantly. Now, I mean, it's a movie. Okay. But at the same time, you got to wonder if Justice spoke to Wheat, which we know, gets this information, and then Zigo goes up to Yonkers. Is there something lost in the translation where there's not a sense of urgency by Zigo when he leaves? You understand? Like maybe, if I tell, it's like the game of telephone where the story changes by 2 or 3 times. Okay. Maybe Justice told somebody, then somebody tells Zigo, and somewhere in there, that sense of urgency, like, oh, this could be the guy, because Wheat's telling Justice, oh yeah, he shot my dog and this and that. This guy's a problem in the neighborhood.
But what's the difference between these tips going to him now and the hundreds? And you seen that movie. If what I got out of that movie, the whole moral was, look at how crazy it was. Every corner he turned, everywhere he went, somebody was pointing to him. That's the Son of Sam. So that's like kind of what I'm saying to you guys. Were they coming here as a witness or a suspect? How many tips did he have his hopes up at that point? It was a year already. So I mean, until they get him,
Yeah. But if what you're saying is accurate, and I believe you are pretty much accurate. I mean, they had to deal with so many tips. They may not have been going up there with the idea of, we got him. Okay.
They would have had more cops. They would have had more cops if they knew.
That's what Carl is saying.
That's okay. They would have had more cops.
They had to check it out first, I feel, and the information from the police department, and then they'd call it in, because like we know now, there's hundreds of tips all over the place. If you send a mob of people on every tip, I mean, plus that's a year in. Maybe they were sending a mob when this first started, but it got on crazy. I mean, you can't send the whole force on every tip.
Another thing I just remembered is in the film, they're kind of playing it off like, oh, we're going to check a parking ticket. Like, that's ridiculous. Okay, like, that they play it off that way.
But it might have been something that different. Let me tell you, those 2 yahoos went up there not knowing what they were going to find, and they hit the fucking jackpot. Promotion, they caught the Son of Sam. Because my whole thing to you, Neil, if the Yonker police had him, why didn't they just pull the trigger and arrest him?
I don't know. Why didn't they go? on June 10th just for the letters. He's telling them, I'm getting harassing letters, and I think this guy shot my dog. They know the dog got shot. They were there. They got called.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know why they never went to Berkowitz. It's disheartening, and from June 10th, you got 2 months there,
It's more than just not connecting dots. Okay.
Why can't you just question him? Does it have to be about Son of Sam? Can't you just go question him on the harassment?
I guess I would have thought of it. I mean,
here's something. I don't know the answer to it, but do you know when Zigo showed up in Yonkers,
mm-hmm.
they go to 35 Pine, and the story that I know is they sat there waiting for Berkowitz to come out. If you're going to, this is actually contradicting what I think, but just hear me out.
Mm-hmm.
If you're there to check on a guy that got a parking ticket in Brooklyn at 2:00 in the morning, and he's not a suspect, you're just there for information, wouldn't you go into the apartment and knock on the door? What, you see what I'm saying? I mean, there's no threat. There's a guy.
I'll tell you what.
Ticket.
I'll tell you what. I talked to Rossi.
Okay.
And he said he knocked on the door, and he's lucky that no one came out. Not on the arrest date. So I'm just saying, you go up there and knock on that door, it'll blow you away. So I think they were waiting for him to come out,
Not on the arrest date.
Not on the arrest date. Rossi had knocked on the door, and he told me, he's lucky because what they found in there was a few firearms, and he could have got blasted. So I'm thinking the day of the arrest, you're saying, why didn't they just go up there and rush him? I think they were being precaution and waiting for him to come to them.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
fair enough. And
because they did have guys on the roof too. I mean, they were placing people around.
Yeah.
So he couldn't get out.
All right, never mind. I'm trying to poke holes in my own theory.
No, I mean, we just don't know, and I'm still curious about the chain of command going from Justice down to Zigo. What was he told? Does he know walking out of that station house?
Yeah, right. Zigo was rogue too. Let's not forget. I could see him just maybe catching wind and Say that again, Mike.
Does he know walking out of the 65th precinct that on his way to Yonkers? Does he know that Carr talked to Justice and said what she said? That's what I want to know.
I would think so.
Well,
yeah. And they're going up there with the idea they got the Son of Sam on their hands.
As much as they were the last tip is what I'm saying. Carl's kind of right, because look how many times they were let down through the year. The tip after tip after tip. So, until they get him, I don't think, no one's ever really correct. But I think they thought this was some good stuff.
They could have been like, shit, Yonkers. There's no way this guy's in Yonkers.
They didn't want to come up here anyway. They don't want us,
but you gotta figure if Zigo heard the conversation or Justice relayed the conversation he just had with Carr to Zigo. As a detective working on a big case like this, I would figure he's in his car in no time because you never know what's going to happen.
And his heart was in it. That guy seemed like he wanted to get this guy more than any cop or any that I've read about.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, all right, guys, we're going to wind this down. All right. It was a great episode. Thank you for coming on as usual. And I guess we'll be back in a couple of weeks with another one. We got some things we're working on right now. So if you don't see us in a couple of weeks, we're still working behind the scenes, people. Okay.
Right. Neil to bring in a lot of this information, man. Yeah. Good work, buddy, man. I got to tell you.
I just like sharing everything and discussing it, going through everything with Carl and everybody, so everybody can see everything we see. If they don't see it, and it's just good discussion.
Yeah. You're a premier Son of Sam researcher.
You know what? When I'm hanging out with you guys, I just feel like I'm drinking in a bar and telling stories. Like hashing stuff up.
All our shows are like that. Speaking of lumped up, I'm about to drink a couple of Johnny Walkers in my backyard.
Sounds good.
I'm about to look at a beautiful barmaid serve me at Doc Holiday. I'm going over there. getting drunk.
What we saw the other night?
Yeah.
Oh,
Same
tell
girl,
her, tell her I said hi.
I will.
Oh, Neo, good.
Yeah.
Talk to you.
All right.
Be good.
All right,
take care,
guys.
you
Have a good one.
Take
All
care.
right. Bye-bye.
Bye.